What's the most X-Files-like experience you've had in real life? I saw my mom holding my baby sister in her arms and taking her to bed. Not weird, right? My mom was still pregnant with my sister at that time. I went to kitchen and saw her still in there. Still pregnant. I didn't even bother going to bedroom to see who just went in there. Just nope. Stay in living room and mind my own business. Haha, love your reaction though, like no way. Frick this, I am not playing your games. Frick off. Oh okay, this one scarred me for a couple of months. When I was in high school, a guy and I got into an argument. He socked me in the jaw and started to fall to the floor. When I hit the floor, I instantly transported to a dinner table at which I was an adult. There was a woman sitting across from me, with a toddler boy and a preteen girl. I got a good look of my surroundings, a relatively modern house, with what looked like 2 floors. I felt like I belonged here, like I had some sort of emotional connection with all the people in the room, especially the kids. Then, the woman, my wife, asked me a question. When I opened my mouth, I threw up all over the table and woke up in a stretcher in an ambulance. Hours later, I found out I just had a minor concussion. For a while, I felt like I left a part of my life behind, even if it was only for a bleak moment in that world. To this day, I can still clearly remember all their faces and what the house looked like. Man actually hit you so hard you were knocked into the future. 6 years ago, I was hanging out with my siblings in our yard during a clear, sunny day around high noon, and I suddenly caught something moving in the sky out of the corner of my eye. When I turned to get a better look, I couldn't reconcile what the frick I was seeing. It was a metal cube just gliding through the air pretty high up. I proceeded to absolutely lose my crap and my sibs saw it as well before it disappeared behind some trees. We ran to the other side of the trees but it was already gone. Still creeps me out to think about. We did live right next to a military base, so make of that what you will. Thing had all the aerodynamics of a literal brick though. It hung in the air in precisely the way that bricks don't, is what you're saying. Sounds like part of a Vaughan constructor fleet to me. This happened when I was either 8 or 9. It involves a weird incident with my twin brother, and for a long time afterwards I thought I had dreamt it. So it was early evening after the sun had gone down, and I was downstairs in the living room watching TV. My brother was up in our bedroom reading. At some point this really uncomfortable feeling came over me, and I thought that my brother needed my help. I go upstairs, and our bedroom at the time was at the end of the hallway. As I walk down the hallway, and I'm standing right outside our door, and right as I go to knock I hear a voice say I have to leave now. He opened the door, said I think someone was outside the window talking to me, but the only thing I heard was that they had to leave. We were both creeped out, and told our mom what happened, but nothing ever came of it. For a long time I thought I had dreamt this, but a few years ago my brother asked me, hey, remember that time when we were kids and someone was talking to me through the bedroom window? Remember how he left right when you came in the room? What the heck was that? Because he remember it exactly the way I do. I'm convinced this really happened. I was 6 and my brother was 10. We had a 21-year-old foster brother who lived with us off and on. One night I woke up to see him standing in the doorway of my room, checking on me. I said his name in a questioning voice. He said, "It's okay. Go back to sleep." Around the same time, my brother woke up in tears. He said he'd had a dream about a knight standing on a hill, and it made him feel very sad. Turns out our brother died in a car crash that evening. This brought tears to my eyes. Sorry for your loss, even if it was some time ago. My wife calling my name. Nothing unusual about that, except that I did not hear it with my ears, as I was listening to Led Zeppelin's In My Time of Dying on the stereo, and it was cranked up. I heard it in my mind. I walked to the bathroom as I knew my wife was taking a bath. I found her face down in the water. She was unconscious, having suffered an epileptic seizure. Fortunately, I found her in time. Apparently Robert Plant had a traumatic experience that involved this song as well. Moral of the story, don't frick with this crap. Ghost car. I worked the overnight shift at an AM radio station back in the 90s. Saw a car come down the driveway to the parking lot. Went out to see who it was and the car was just gone. I would have seen if it had turned around or backed out. Thought I was going nuts until the announcer strolled out of the studio and said, "What happened to that car?" Maybe it was Art Bell checking to make sure you weren't playing the wrong segment. In high school, my pal bounced a bouncy ball in his room so hard that we never saw it again. We tore that room up, never found it. There was a Twilight Zone episode like this. Parents hear their child calling them at night, go into her room, can hear her but not see her. Turns out she fell out of bed, rolled under the bed and into another dimension. Not as spooky as some other things I've read, but I was sitting at my computer with my door kinda cracked open, enough to where I can see out. My door is right next to my desk so I can see out. I then see like 5 men in suits walk up the stairs and start walking to my room. I should be freaking out but I can't seem to move my head. Then they reach my room and kick the door open all the way. Then suddenly I can't move my head again. All the men are gone but my door is wide open. Still freaky to think about sometimes. Nothing too crazy, but definitely creeped my wife and I out. We have a Wii. The sensor bar is on the TV stand directly in front of the TV, as is anyone's. We don't have the cord wrapped up or anything, it just hangs behind the TV in a jumble. One night we were watching TV cuddling on the couch, when suddenly, the Wii sensor bar literally flies across the room till it got to the end of its length and fell to the floor. Like someone had grabbed it and chucked it across the room. We could find no explanation for this whatsoever. We had a cat and a dog at the time but cat was sleeping in another room, and dog was on the couch with us. We did have several birthday cards on top of the TV on display and one of them was on the ground. So the only thing I could think was that somehow we missed the card falling and it hit the cord and Viola. I tried for 10 minutes to throw that card as hard as I could at that cord and it didn't even move the bar from its place on the TV stand. Eventually we just chalked it up to WTF and moved on. But it was definitely weird. If the dog doesn't freak out and the cat isn't going berserk, it's fine. That's what I tell myself anyway. There are two. And if I told people who know me this, they would just laugh and think I was pulling their leg. When I was a little kid I could see into the hallway that connected my room to the house. It was a short hallway, maybe 8 feet long. I just happened to wake up for whatever reason, and an orb of light shot down the hallway, literally in a flash. It was so fast, all I could tell was it was an orb of light. At first I thought it was a reflected car headlight or something, but we live way out in the country and there were no cars in the driveway. Plus there was no way light could reflect back into that hallway. 3 walls of the house are embedded in the hill, very energy efficient. The second was about 8 years ago. I had a job as a security guard in a 100-plus-year-old building. A cop had been shot to death on the stairs 60 years ago, and the stairs are about 6 feet from my watch desk in the center of the middle floor of this building. We were open until midnight each night, and usually no one came in, but the staff sometimes worked late. So when I heard someone walking down the stairs, huge wooden stairwell that terraces and splits to go up another level, I didn't really think anything of it. The footsteps stop at my desk, so I close my shift report and look up. Nothing. No one. No thing. No change. Nada. I thought I was hallucinating due to lack of sleep, so I played along with my delirium. I went back to filling out my report. On a lark I said, "I have no idea what you're looking to do, but we're both stuck here. If you don't mind, I have a report to fill out. Please excuse me." About 10 seconds later, the steps started away from me going back up the stairs. I was terrified, way too scared to actually look back up. But after that, I never had another issue in the building. Weird, was I freaking out? Or did I crack up a 60-year dead cop ghost? Who knows, really. I like how the ghost actually went away. What a polite ghost. My cousin and I both remember a room that apparently doesn't exist. When we were both around 10, my cousin was having family problems, and my mom invited her to stay with us while it got sorted out. It was pretty fun, kind of like having a temporary sister. We ended up talking about it a few years ago, reminiscing about the weird things we would do together and some of the memories that stood out the most, among them the night we stayed up laughing at my golden retriever, who kept trying to steal my pillow off the bottom bunk when we were trying to get to sleep. Only problem was, we didn't have a dog, and I never had a bunk bed. For whatever reason, I'd never considered how little sense the memory made, thinking maybe she was just going along with the story. I asked her what color the bed frame was. She thought about it for a second and then answered red. She was right. According to my mom, we never stayed over at anyone else's house, and even if we had, I still remember what her friends' houses looked like. None of them had red bunk beds. I still have no idea what happened. We're all convinced that something is going on in the flat above the one my parents have lived in since 2002. For starters, all of us, me, my siblings, our parents, as well as some of our neighbors, occasionally heard furniture being dragged across the floor when no one was currently living there. Sometimes we'd hear the footfalls of a running child as well. There is also the fact that in the years since we moved there, 2 different married couples lived there, both divorced within a year. A third couple came the brink of divorce to the point where they stopped living together for a while. She went to her parents' home I think, and he also went to stay somewhere else. Apparently in their time away they mended things and, after hearing stories about that flat, decided to move out. No idea if they're still together as of now. Actually, before I moved out in 2009 a couple was remodeling it. Apparently spent a ton of money on it, but their relationship fell apart and they never got married. When I was 19 and my best friend was 20, we are nearly 40 now, we were driving back to my house after visiting someone at work. We were on a somewhat busy road. It was getting dark but wasn't quite dark yet. There were street lights and business lights everywhere, so visibility was still great. This road was 3 lanes in each direction and there was a concrete median dividing the traffic. I was in the left lane next to the median, and a traffic light was coming up. I saw a man standing in the median a good way before where the crosswalk for the light would be. It instantly made me nervous. As soon as I thought that, he stepped out to cross the street. My best friend and I both instantly braced for impact as I slammed on my brakes. We went through him. We didn't hit him, and because there was a car to my right I wasn't able to swerve out of my lane to avoid hitting the man. I looked in my rear view and there wasn't anyone there. I had come to a complete stop and we physically turned around in our seats to see how he had jumped out of the way. There was no one there and no way he could have ran off or hidden anywhere that fast. We both turned to each other and almost in sync asked each other, "Did you see that man?" We both saw the same thing. A man. Couldn't describe his face, but it was a man's form, and both of us remember being confused as to why he was wearing a white robe, and both being terrified that he stepped out in front of us, like he was committing suicide. I had a baby in the back seat. She was about 3 months old. She had been crying during the drive and went silent when we came to a screeching stop, which added to the weirdness of it all. We still bring it up occasionally and neither of us can come up with an explanation for what we saw other than something supernatural. Also, we both saw the white cloth fling across the windshield, like he was hitting it, but there was no impact, nothing. It was like he went through the car. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's a ghost in that baby now. Let me preface this with my morning routine. Wake up at 4:30 am. Out the door by 5:15 am. Clock in at work 5 exam. Never fails unless major traffic incident on the highway. Anyhow, one morning this past August, I am out the door as usual. Minimal traffic on the road. Boss calls halfway through my commute. "Hey, you coming in?" And I say yeah. "Why do you ask?" "Boss, well it's 6:30 am and you usually call if you're going to be late." I look at my dashboard and yup, it's 6:30 am. Somewhere between leaving my door and getting on the road I lost about 1 hour. Check your timeline on Google Maps if you have it on your phone. It records where you go unless you disable it. You could use it to see where that hour went. Every few weeks my girlfriend or I will catch sight of colorful lights moving past our 3rd-story apartment window at night. I, the Scully of the relationship, am convinced it is some trick of the light, with a police car's flashing lights reflecting off of something and bouncing back to our window. My girlfriend is certain that someone is flying a drone past our window to spy on us. I always run out to check as soon as I see the lights, but I never see a drone. The lights look like a drone, but they move too fast and they move through tree branches, so I don't think it's a drone. It's probably aliens though. Get some drinks and have a night with her, looking out the window. And drink every night until you see it. I driving down the highway about 3 am when a semi-truck pulled alongside me, then swerved into my lane, running me off the road and down a very steep incline. I remember going over, I gunned the engine. Why? I don't know, but as I was going downhill I kept telling myself to step on the brake. I couldn't move, it was like someone was holding my foot down. Then I heard this voice tell me, okay, now you can step on the brake. Neither my infant daughter nor myself were injured, and the only damage to the car was a hole in the oil pan. Both the tow truck and the highway patrol officer was incredulous that I didn't roll the car. They told me if I had tried to stop any sooner than I did I would have probably killed us both. It's like a vocal form of dad reflexes. I was digging a grave for a passed on pet in the woods behind my house. I leaned on my shovel to stop for a break. I saw some kind of animal dart in front of me and leaned forward to look at it closely. It had vanished. Next thing I knew, I woke up lying on the ground and for some reason didn't worry about it. I just got up and began digging again. It was a hot summer in the mountains, so when I got weak and exhausted a little later I figured I was getting heat exhaustion. So I went back to my mom's house to cool off. She freaked out because I was covered in blood. I had a big skip mark cut on the very top of my scalp, like something very sharp had skipped across my head like a skipping stone. It was in the middle of a property that backs to a big multi-county lake a mile or two back, and on other sides was just dense forest my family owned. No idea what it was. My money is you got hit by a stray bullet that skimmed your scalp, or something like that. Oh boy, this still wigs me out. I was driving back from a 16-hour road trip to see family and I was about an hour from home. The whole trip was just 4 days long, so I was pretty sleep deprived and had been driving by myself with very few stops. I was cruising on the highway and in front of me was a tunnel through the mountains. I hadn't driven through a tunnel on the way out of the state, so I became alarmed I had been driving the wrong way. I checked my GPS but had no signal on my phone. Unusual. The whole trip I normally have signal. I immediately took the exit before the tunnel to get my bearings. It was a big circle exit and at the end was a 4-way stop with a flashing traffic light. I took a left and the only thing around was a small 50s style diner and a parking lot. All the lights were off in the diner, obviously closed, but the parking lot was full of cars, like, packed. There were old classic cars and new cars, but there was not a single soul to be seen. It was around 3 AM, so I didn't expect a crowd, but there wasn't a hotel or homes nearby, just a closed diner and parking lot full of cars. I didn't even slow down. I freaking noped out of there so hard, pulled a U-turn in the street and drove back to the on-ramp to the highway. Once I was back on the highway I drove for about 30 minutes until the GPS came back. I was actually pretty close to home. My friend and I once drove back to try and find the diner but we never could find it, or the tunnel. I like to think that if I would have pulled into the parking lot my car might have been added to the collection and no one would have seen me again. This is the goodest flyboy. He will bring you 10 years of happiness in exchange for a like on this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.